Hey, Audra, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's AudraKate Gonzalez. That's my author name. Kate is my middle name. Audra's my first name. And I am a author of a young adult horror series called This Is Noir.
Amazing. I would love if you could tell us more about what your books are about.
Yeah, so my books are actually heavily inspired by the Goosebumps series, the Fear Street series, point horror from 80s, 90s that I grew up reading. I started this series as a way to usher in a new generation of kids to love horror. Um, they're a little bit darker than what you would find in Goosebumps or even Fear Street. I know those series kind of had like some campy aspects to them. This is Noir is a little bit grittier than that. Nothing
Nothing
too over
too
the
over
top.
the top.
I would say it's more like a series for kids and teens, anywhere from like 12 to 16 would be a good age range. The first book is called Tomato Juice, and it follows a boy who goes and stays with his grandmother at her tomato farm for the summer. His grandpa has recently passed away, and something really fishy is going on with his grandma, and he starts to catch on to the weird stuff that she's doing. Um, and there's a little darkness in there. Granny ends up being possessed, so that's fun. And then book two, Alligator Skin. It's set in Louisiana, um, and it is set in the 80s, and it follows Jensen, who wakes up from a coma to discover that now she can see ghosts, and there's missing kids involved, and a monster in the bayou, and it's a lot of mystery and cryptozoology. And each book is going to be set in a different state. The idea of noir is it is a town, and every state has one. So book one is Indiana, book two is Louisiana.
Love that. What inspired you to write your books?
Um, I grew up loving horror, and it was hard to find books that fit my reading style. Um, while I loved Goosebumps and Fear Street and Point Horror, they weren't scary enough for me. And I discovered working with kids love to be scared. Like they love scary stuff. And it was hard because like I would read Goosebumps to the kids that I worked with, and they'd be like, it wasn't really, their vibe either. It wasn't too scary for them. Obviously,
Obviously,
I don't want
I don't want
anything to
anything
keep
to
the
keep
kids up at night. But
up.
I did resonate with the fact that kids do want to be scared because I wanted to be scared. So that's kind of where this series uh, came about, was wanting to make something a little bit scarier for kids, to jumpstart them for like Stephen King or Joe Hill and Grady Hendrix. So that's kind of where the inspiration for this series came.
Love that. When you were writing your books, who are you thinking of when it comes to who the books are for?
Tomato Juice was for my grandpa. The book itself, there's a lot of family values involved in it, and kind of like, Dean, the main character in the story, he recently lost his grandpa, and they're still dealing with that grief, every single day. And it's just kind of the message of like, how far would
Far
you
would you
go
go?
to have that person back in your life? And my grandma passed away in 2020, And I noticed that like my grandpa and like my family in general, like just really we grieved for a very long time, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it felt like we were losing sight of what our grandma would have wanted, and that wasn't like us to continually grieve every single day. So that's kind of where Tomato Juice was written for. It was written for him, and then Alligator Skin is for my siblings. Um, there's four of us. I have two brothers and one sister, and so Alligator Skin, there's a lot of sibling dynamic in that story. You know how you may not always get along with your sibling, but you're always there for each other. And in Alligator Skin, it's two sisters, and one's the older sister, one's the younger sister. And it gets down to the point where it's like they don't get along, but Jensen would do anything to protect her little sister. And so Alligator Skin was for my siblings.
Love that. How long have you been writing and what made you really sit down and start?
I have been writing since I was like 12. The first stories I ever wrote were these like scrapbook pieces of paper that like I hand wrote the stories, and they were like 10 pages long, because let's be real, how long can you handwrite for before you're just like, no, I can't do this anymore? And I remember like drawing the pictures for the story, like the illustrations, and stapling the stories together. They were terrible. But that was when I started writing. And again, it goes back to Goosebumps. I'll always say that R.L. Stine was like my main, inspiration as an author, because I loved reading his stories so much as a kid that it was like, I want to write something like him. Like, I want to write stories like he does. So a lot of my stapled together stories were very Goosebumps inspired. And then when I went to college, I started out as a political science major because I wanted to be a lawyer. And my first English composition professor was like, you should be a writer. Like, you should consider this. And I did really well in his class. And I didn't really take him seriously at first. But then when I did do well in his class, I was like, oh, maybe I should do this. And I ended up changing my major the following semester. And I've been writing ever since.
Love that. What is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
Ooh, I'm I'm what they call a pantser. So I don't really I'm terrible at outlining. I'm currently in school for my master's and grad school for my master's, and they're very like outline, outline, outline. And I'm like, ooh, I just like my characters to do whatever they want to. Um so I do understand the importance of an outline, but because I am a pantser, I don't have much of a schedule other than like I try to make it a goal to write for an hour a day. And it's one of those things where it's like, if I have distractions and I only get like 300 words in, or if I'm completely focused and get like 2,000 words in, I'm happy with whatever. But that's kind of like my schedule. I try to balance it between work and school. So,
Love that. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
um, I usually set my phone aside, either in a different room or like across the room, because it's a major distraction to just like pick up your phone and get on Instagram. And I can get swallowed into the Instagram black hole for like hours. um, so I usually will like, I know a lot of authors like listening to music. Sometimes I'll listen to like gothic horror music, like very like piano instrumental stuff. Um, but most of the time I turn on like trashy reality shows in the background while I'm writing. So I usually am sitting on the couch with my laptop in my lap with like 90 Day Fiance on, and I always have my dogs with me, so they're like a necessity. But yeah, usually on my couch with my laptop, in the bed with my laptop, with the TV on in the background, and my dogs next to me is my ideal writing space.
Love that. What is your favorite writing snack or drink?
Um, I love having like something salty to snack on while I'm writing. So I'll either go for like Cheez-Its are a big one that I like to snack on while I write. And I also go for like pretzels. Drink wise, I usually do something with a lid. So like water, or like if I make a smoothie and have a lid on the smoothie, I'll drink that. But like I don't trust myself to, like, some people will drink tea or coffee, and it stresses me out because I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna spill it on my laptop and, like, lose all my work or something." So, anything with a lid, I'm cool with.
Love that. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
I read a lot of horror. Um, I Grady Hendrix, I love him. His books are so good. So I read a lot of his books. Anytime he has a new one come out, I'm, like, instantly buying it. But I still read Goosebumps and I still read Fear Street, and I like to throw in some fantasy romance from time to time. I usually stick to the YA genres just because that's what I write. So it makes sense to continually stay in that mode of like reading those genres, and you can get a lot of inspiration from those genres, and you can get a lot of character ideas, because when you're an adult, you can only remember so much of your childhood and what it was like when you were a young adult. And so it's nice to read like other perspectives on the young adult genre.
Love that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
R.L. Stein. R.L. Stein mostly. I also did enjoy and see it, like, I can't remember the authors now, but they wrote the Bailey School Kids series. And I loved their stories as a kid. They were very like inspirational. Um, and then Stephen King. I don't read a lot of Stephen King, but I did read his like memoir, his Stephen King on writing. Um, and that was just super like powerful, and I recommend it to anybody who's considering becoming an author or is dabbling in writing. He has so much good advice for people who are getting in that field.
Love that. What books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
I did read a lot of Goosebumps, but I also was a twihard back in the day. Twilight was my jam, and I still love Twilight, so it really stuck with me. Um, and I was very just like, I don't know, I was obsessed with it. It was probably unhealthy. I remember when like I needed the next book, and it was like my parents were like, "Well, we just bought you the last one. We can't buy you the next one. Like, we just bought you that one." And it was like, "Fine, I'll figure out how to do it myself." And I remember like knocking my baby teeth out to be able to go and purchase the next book in the Twilight series from that tooth fairy money. So yeah, Twilight was, I think I was like 12 or 13 when I started that series, but it was like definitely.
Love that. On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if they come out with something, you automatically grab it?
Uh, Grady Hendrix is like the top of the list. I made sure as soon as he announced How to Sell a Haunted House, which was just the book that he published this year, as soon as he announced that last year and the pre-orders for the signed copies went up on Barnes and Noble, I was like, bye, add to cart. That's mine. I love his horror so much. And another instant buy, I'm not totally sure. I feel like he's like the only one that really strikes with me, that anytime I see one of his books on the shelves, I'm like, I have to have it.
Love that. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
Don't don't force yourself to read something you don't like. That's something that I struggled with the past couple of years. I felt like if I started it, I had to finish it. And sometimes it makes you not want to read. It makes you not want to pick up the next book. And it puts you in those terrible, dreadful reading slumps. So anyone who's like, getting back into reading, I would just say, if you're give yourself so many chapters. Sometimes books need a couple chapters before they get to the nitty gritty, meaty parts. But if you're so many chapters in and you're like it's not clicking, just put it back on the shelf, because you're going to end up not liking yourself once you finish it. I guarantee.
Love that. On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
Don't keep going back and editing. Just go straight through. Like, you will get stuck in an endless editing loophole if you continually go back to that first page, or you continually go back to that chapter 2. Like, you will be there forever, and your story will never continue, and you'll end up 5 years down the road without a finished product because you're still editing chapter 1. So focus on writing the whole entire story, writing the whole entire book, and then go back and fix things, add things, take things away. And then my other piece of advice is, if you're getting into writing and you're not an avid reader, become an avid reader. Read everything. Read the newspaper, read magazines, read nonfiction, fiction, whatever. Read it all, even if it's not a genre you like, because it'll only make you a better writer to understand all the other genres, all the other types of books, because those are things that you can utilize in the future for your own stories.
Love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
I don't know if people are surprised, but like, I used to do theater, and that's actually that's how I ended up choosing my bachelor's major, because my major was creative writing with a concentration in screenwriting, because I did like musical theater, and I did it for quite a long time. The last show I was in was in 2021, and so that would have been like, I'd been doing it for 5 years at that point. And I was in like 2 musicals every year. But that's I loved it. I enjoyed it. And I thought that was honestly the career path that I was gonna go down. Was, writing screenplays or uh plays in general. But it it was nice to learn it as an art form. It was good to learn how to write it and learn how to format them. Um, I don't see myself writing screenplays in the future, but yeah, that's the one surprising thing, is that I did that.
Love that. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
Not that I can think of.
Amazing. Well, where's the best place for readers to find your book? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option for them and the best place to connect with you?
So I currently don't have anywhere for signed copies right now. I am hoping to get an Etsy shop up and going soon where people will be able to order signed copies through. But right now, the best place to order would be Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any of those online stores, bookstores that you purchase from, Books a Million, anything like that, you can order from. Um, and then you can also follow me on Instagram at lets.get.lit.urcher. That's a lot. I'm also on TikTok with the same handle, and my author website is author AudraKateGonzalez.com. So
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes so everyone can find you. And again, thank you so much.
thank you for having me.